Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 2 Hearts of Iron 4's by Blood Alone DLC, and we are playing as, yes, Italy, because that is where the focus development for this DLC has been. I have not been playing much HOI IV recently. Those of you who follow the channel know I have been and still in the midst of a Hearts of Iron 3 USA playthrough. So I played some of the the railway. I forget which DLC, the previous one. I was waiting for Black Ice to come out with the railroads because I really wanted to see good railroad implementation and the effects of the war in the East. Well, we have a new DLC. I know there's a bunch of people that want to watch this, interested in my takes because I do know a thing or two about World War II. Not the greatest expert, not claiming anything like that. I'm sure I'll get things wrong, but do know a thing or two. And so we're taking a look at what I think of the new DLC. I did play 2-3 months into playing as Italy last night because I've just gotten the game. So this is still pretty fresh for me looking at. This is a nice step. There is now a, General di Brigata, Brigadier General here is what they're calling it here. Don't know about the Italian, but Brigadier General normally commands, I think, a brigade, but I don't know. But not sure. At this time period, maybe I'm showing my ignorance here. Right. Okay, I understand why, whether these names are any relevance to historical people and the inability for them to come up with enough graphical images and match them up. I do understand that, but I really wish they would have made these guys into a pool like before. They can be, I would love them to have historical names and everything. That would allow modders who want to come in and lovingly stick on a, maybe even just a black and white photo right inside the frame there, offer the frame as a separate graphical bit, so that yes, some would be color, some would be black and white, some would be this sort of drawn image kind of thing, and it might all be a mess for some people and they don't have to use the mod. And for immersion, for other reasons, I would like to see that transfer. But this is still a better than nothing element that I'm going to give it. Now we're going to move. Well, yeah, he's only. Move him. We're going to weaken our border with the French here. We're going to, like I say, I have played a little bit. We're going to move that. Did you know Di Savali? Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Sì, signore.
I don't know. I'm not using Emmanuel. Emmanuel Ferberto. Okay, I'm not familiar with these division names, but okay. We're going to move 2 armored divisions, or whatever you want to call these things. Some unit with some tanks. down here. Now, we're also going to come down here and potato, yes. That's what it sounds like to me. Let's click on here to get a general now. Old guard, old guard. And hello, Chetan, how you doing? Good to have you here. Now here, General Mario Berti. He's a war hero, reckless, guard. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it just I would agree that old guard would be a common sort of trait for military leaders. Okay, for Italy. An organizer, infantry officer. All right, we'll do this. And hello, Tinky Tink. How you doing, my friend? Tankette supports semi-motorized cavalry and Italian unique design. Yes, hello. Ha. I am doing very well, Jetin. And hello, Lord Samuel. Good old militia unit that doesn't have NATO symbol. Yeah, I have NATO symbols set as a default. I think I could come in here. Yeah, okay, this template is locked and cannot be changed. Okay, but I don't know if there's a way to change some of these. What I would have done is because I get some of the, like the colonial with the fez. We can look here at, this is just what they're calling a division, colonial Eritrea. What I would have done for something like this is superimposed the fez over a appropriate, basic background for the type of division, because I read this and I look, I know there's lots of people out there and I can understand why they're locking these things, so you don't just auto shift militia into a good generic division and blah blah blah. I do get that, and I'm not trying to disparage people who don't naturally read the NATO symbols. I know there is sort of an elite, hey, I'm a traditional old guard wargamer. Well, yeah, true, good. And I am one of those, but I want to have as many people into the hobby as good as you can. And yeah, I might be, if like we were talking about printed counters on the map table and we all have to have one, I might be the one, well, suck it up, kid, learn the NATO ones. But since we can even play competitively against each other and everyone have their own counter type, I'm good with it. I'm good with, having everybody do their own thing. Unlike colonial and regular divisions, since they are standard army. Right. Curious question. If you have no other threats in Italy, why not send everyone to Ethiopia? Very good question. And here's why. Supply. We have a limited amount, and I haven't looked into all of this, but we have a limited amount of supply that we can bring into here through the total of 3 ports. So we can look here, as port level 2 down here. So, and I do believe there was a railway up into here. Now, the main railway was, and is shown here, coming through the French territory into Ethiopia. And we can see this railway, and Italy does go on and build time in here. So we don't want to overly stack in units and have them starve because we can't supply them. And Jetin, I see that you're new here. I hope you hit that. You smash the follow button over on Twitch. Love to see you around more. So that is why plays in Italy and have wondered sometime. Yeah, supply problems. There's like no actual supply routes. Yes, I mean there is to the port and there is to Asmara here, but once you get into these mountains. And we're not going to be taking out French Somaliland here, but there's going to be nothing that's going to supply in here. And so that is, and this game, and I'm going to be criticizing it because I've already, like I said, played earlier on. Said I've played in just 2 or 3 months, and I see problems, and we're going to get to some of the stuff that I'm going to be upset about. But this is light years ahead of the way this game was at release, which really sucked. And for and I guess we can see up here, the more green, the better the supply. And it will go into the red because, like I have, we can see up here, and that gets worse and worse. This is so much better than this was at release, and what they're trying to do, even though they've removed, look, we can look at things like, Tinky was bringing up here in our production here. We'll click over here, our tankettes. Here, and Italy did have some tanks, but not very many. These get consumed too easy, and we look historically how tanks, because we can see them because they're bigger objects, but this happens down to literally the bullets level of the stuff. But on a more durable good, let's get away from the bullets, but down to rifles and pistols. How much captured weapons are used in World War II? That we can see damaged, knocked out tanks being brought back into service. But the way this game is done, and it consumes durable goods, and they did get consumed, but even in things like training and other elements, where an army that is, say, sitting here and maybe fighting the Ethiopians, but not going on an offensive, shall we say, is using less supply than one that is going on the offensive. And so without the production of, which we're calling supply, which, yes, can mean boots, but also primarily I would say it means munitions. And I would still like supply to be in the game. So that is not setting that up in there. Let me get it. Also, all your motorized desert and mountain troops in the north, roger that. Yes, so I'm sending. Okay, I got some mountain troops here. Because I'm not over, and I don't know exactly what's going to strain it. I'm going to send 2 mountain divisions here into the north to help out. One of these so-called armor divisions just to give it some armor up here, and one down here, and another infantry division down in the south to better push. We will, and I was making progress when I was test playing it. Let's also move you to here. So we will make some progress with those. This won't be super fast. Yeah, well, we do have fuel now in the game. We do have fuel up here as opposed to just oil. So we do have fuel in the game, and fuel does need to get to the front. So we do have fuel in the game, and that is good. Still have Ethiopia in the war with Italy. By the way, I noticed most of the games you still have Ethiopia in the war with Italy, even so they were conquered, never-ending war. Yeah, well, this, and we will get to it here. We do have here, it looks like, and I here, solid progress, but if we don't, after a while, do well, we'll get some negative effects from not taking Ethiopia. Now, first major rant that I want to do is, well, I don't know if it's going to be a rant, but unhistorically here, we are negative here. Look at, I can trade with the United Kingdom. I can trade with the Dutch. I can trade with the British Raj. Well, in 1935, when this war with Ethiopia starts, And I really don't know where the front was January 1st, 1936, because it was sort of late into the year, very late into the year when it starts. But I'm not an expert on the Ethiopian invasion. But, Italy is in an alliance. In the beginning of 1935, Italy is in an alliance with United Kingdom and France, even with Mussolini as the fascist leader. They're in an alliance together left over from World War I. Now, it may not be a very strong or very formalized alliance, but they're still considered allies in the beginning of 1935. Mussolini is anti-Hitler at this point, in the beginning of 1935. He is worried about multiple things. One is literally the territory that up in here that he's taken from Austria and over here that Hitler and his ideology may claim. Two, just general geographical positions, shall we say. He's worried about those. So he is anti-Hitler. He is even working with, and in the beginning of 1936, shortly here, I think it's February, but I'm not sure. It's in my mod. I don't remember all these dates. And I will look at the chat here a bit more. Mussolini sets up, after this happens, but Mussolini sets up the Three Powers Pact. That was the first thing. And that is an alliance between Italy, Austria, and Hungary, directed at Germany primarily. And it is signed, I believe, in Venice in 36, early 36. Foreign ministers of these two countries and Mussolini signed, I believe is what it is. But so Mussolini in the beginning of 1935 is counting France and Britain as allies. When his allies turn on him, and the big thing they do, and the reason I'm sort of bringing all this up, is they embargo Italy for everything. Any League of Nations nation is forced to stop importing or exporting everything except one basic resource, but to put on an embargo on Italy. I don't know why they didn't do this here, because I've read that if you start, if a nation here, and I'm not an expert on this new DLC, or maybe more of the free update mechanic, is that if a nation gets enough high world tension or whatever, you can put an embargo on them. And I simulated that in an early mod that I made, and I don't know if they still have trade influence in this game, that I got them to keep it in here. Because Italy in 1935 is embargoed by the League of Nations. Everything except oil. The one thing that might be crippling to Italy, they don't embargo. They embargo everything but oil on Italy. And that really, even though he still goes through with his plans and sets up his anti-German alliance, that is what really starts moving Mussolini from a Franco Anglo alliance to a pro-German alliance and pro-Hitler alliance. And it's only then do they start moving. And just before the invasion of Austria by Germany, it's peaceful, but it's still an invasion. Hitler goes down to visits Mussolini and gets permission from Mussolini to take over Austria without Italy going to war. So I don't know why they didn't set this up as an embargo. And see, that is a major influence on why you want to take out Ethiopia quickly. Because historically, very shortly, within a month or two, I don't know the exact dates, of the conquest and settlement of Ethiopia, the Western Allies removed the embargo on Italy because it hasn't worked. They don't keep it going. But this really shocks Mussolini because he sees this as unconquered territory by Europeans, so why can't I have mine? You have yours. And yes, Egypt, I know they call it United Kingdom here, but Egypt is, has a king. It's a client state. It has its own army, but Europeans control it overall. Why can't I have mine? And this really shocks Mussolini. Okay, just another thing is grinding officer traits and skirmishes. Yes, in other words, using one officer to fight all your battles. Yes, that is. Do you think Duce and Hitler were talking about cutting off the Med in order to monopolize oil assets in the Middle East? I doubt it. Because I don't see how it's going to help, long term. Because you say cutting off. Hello, MMDB. I don't see how. I mean, obviously losing, oil that you control in one, either through a client state or more directly, which these are sort of different client states, or even, losing access to oil. Yes, that will hurt, no doubt, and I'm not going to say that doesn't. But you always have, functionally for the time, unlimited on, including Venezuela. Here, I have a really nice map that was, an infographic map that was made in, just a digital version of it, made in 1940, showing how Standard Oil, the company, and the reason they're sort of called Standard Oil because they are the standard of oil, how they view the world. And looking in, so U.S. is still at peace. The war in Europe is going on. The war in Asia is going on, but there's still no world war. It may sort of feel like that to some people, obviously those in the midst of it. But it shows how much Standard Oil was moving oil around the United States, coming out of Venezuela, and still moving some stuff around, here sort of in 1940, remember, away from the front. And Russia is yet at war. At that point. So it's looking, or maybe it's early 41. I don't remember exactly when that is taken out. So France and Britain functionally has, as they can perceive it, unlimited oil from the Americas. Even if, shall we say, a peace happens, or a ceasefire, and France and Britain still exist. And this area in here is, shall we say, Axis controlled or Soviet controlled or whatever, that they don't have access, the Western Allies don't have access to it. They still have unlimited strategic reserves here. Yes, they have to pay for them, maybe a bit more than you have to pay for them from here in foreign currencies, but it doesn't do it. And even if Japan somehow, and also, unless, and again, and when we're talking, but before 1941, well, at least before 1940, we're not really seeing Japan really eyeing up taking out the oil that's in this, because there is a bunch in Burma, in this part of the world. So they still have access to all that. So I don't see that as a major point of talking. So, a talking point that they would have, especially leading up to the situations. And Hitler is shocked, upset that Mussolini invades Greece. And Mussolini does it as sort of a surprise to Hitler. So the German Abwehr and the Ausland SD elements, you guys, the SS guys who do foreign intelligence, none of those guys picked up. Oh, and while Mussolini is fighting down here, yes, this is before the Africa Corps shows up, obviously, does not pick up the intelligence to warn Hitler that Mussolini is going to invade Greece. And Mussolini doesn't tell that to Hitler. And then, of course, you have the whole Yugoslav fiasco that comes in as part of that play eventually and opens up another front. Hitler is not really, I don't think, wanting a Mediterranean war. I think he would like to. Greece more or less wants to be friends with Italy, but Italy doesn't want to be friends with Greece because Mussolini wants to take Greece. But there is a an authoritarian, we'll call it, regime in Greece. Hitler wants to get these nations, particularly Yugoslavia and Bulgaria, to mostly just be existing allies, meaning peaceful, to sort of shore up, and with Vichy France, to sort of shore up the southern front. He is not really looking to move into the Mediterranean. He wants to move east. He wants us to be stable down here. And it's Mussolini that's widening the war more and more, that diverts German assets. This is, I'm trying to view from Hitler's perspective, away from his proper, as he sees it, proper goal of moving into the Soviet Union. So I don't think it would be a major topic of conversation at all. Okay, it seems today Iran, China, and Russia oil prices. Yes, that is and of course we use a lot more oil than we did back then. So it's even more of an asset. So yeah, there is some of that. So I like the history. I like the history very much to Getty and the other barons, yes, of the USA. Yes. Hello, Arno. Good to have you here, my friend. Italy invaded Greece. Greece beat the shit out of the Italians until the Germans, yes, more or less. More complicated than that, but yes. I always wondered about that, since not much is there except for ego and maybe a little position in Greece. Well, okay. Again, and this is meant to be a stream of setting up and getting going with this game. You have to understand you have to understand everybody from their ideologies, okay? And I was going to say Hitler and Mussolini, but then I thought Stalin, but then Churchill and whoever the current premier of France is, let's see, I don't know. Who is this? Pierre Laval already is the leader of France? Was he really the leader of France at this time? I know eventually he takes over, but I don't know. I mean, I just quite honestly don't know. In 1936. He very well might have been. You have to understand everyone through their ideological viewpoint. Mussolini, clearly is a socialist, but he's become and I almost want to use the term national socialist, but he's become a ardent ultra-nationalist. He also believes, because again, you got to look not just at World War II, but the relatively recent reunification of Italy, that he's looking at trying to rebuild the Roman Empire. And that is part of his ideological viewpoint. That is why he wants freaking Ethiopia. Not because, well, maybe some there, we can look here at, is it this one here? No, there's resources map. Okay, there may be a little bit of rubber that they could use, and there may be some, but there really isn't any industry here. There isn't really, you're not going to make a whole lot of money. These people really don't have, it's going to take a lot to build an economy to where that they're buying, shall we say, Italian-made goods, and have money to buy Italian-made goods. So, there's really not a lot of reason to want Ethiopia other than just simply wanting to build an empire. And Ethiopia is, of all of sub-Saharan Africa, I'm just talking sub-Saharan, I mean, we can talk about elements up here, but of sub-Saharan Africa, is the only non-European developed state that I would call a state as the Europeans encounter them. Yes, there has been the Great Zimbabwe or whatever down in Zimbabwe, but those are some ruins. I don't even know how much of a state that was. This is the only one, and of course this versions of this state go back to the time of King David of Israel. So it's a very old, with somewhat of a contiguous history of going back that far. So it is the one place outside of Europe in Africa, or outside of the Mediterranean world, shall we say, in Africa, that has a reasonably stable state that's long-standing. But it is not, unlike, say, down here, where you have huge amounts of resources that Europe needs, the modern-day world needs as well. It does not have a lot of resources that anybody needs to have. Yeah, the Greek thing does delay Barbarossa a bit. And hello, Sun Temple Radio. So yeah, so that so you have to understand these people through their viewpoint, and Italy wants to, and also Italy or Mussolini, and again we were talking along earlier. Why don't we send more divisions down to here? Part of the reason Mussolini doesn't send more divisions down here to fight the British is supply problems. So he's having supply problems there, but he's not. Things are not going well. He believes that he can push into Greece and have a great victory on another front, because the problem is not how big is the Italian army, it's how big can you put the Italian army down here. Another front would be greater conquest. So there's some media here getting Pfizer wanting to trade. Yeah, well, companies want to make money. Drug companies want to, of course, sell their products. Okay, not a colony to Britain or France. Yeah, Mussolini. Okay, was definitely not. Hello, Beamslam. Good to have you here, my friend. In Tennessee. Okay. HOI IV, HOI the fourth is today. Yes, we're doing this. So, okay. So let's continue with getting set up here. Now we're going to do some research. I am still playing these games. Learned that I am a structuralist, or sort of fundamentalist, getting these things done first. We do have a lot of other technologies to delve into here. And we can see here the sort of, build much improved tank tree here. But I think, well, even though it's going to take almost a year, not quite, but almost a year, let's do this too. Let's get this going. Because after this war with Ethiopia is done, I think we are going to be at peace for until 1940. At least that's the general plan. And I think right now, while it's useful and it's only 35 days, and I'm so glad. It used to be, of course, everything was 90 days through the tree, and I have not looked through this tree hardly at all. But we're going to do this to increase naval bases, which will increase supply to the region and infrastructure here. So we will do that, get that going while it's still of good effect. Now, production. Well, let's look at navies. Let's do this. I want to get these big ships done and out of the way, so we're actually going to reduce that down to, we're going to keep them in production, but we're going to reduce it down to just one factory that will produce, get this out hopefully as quickly as possible. And as things go along, focus in on those. Right. We have 10. Okay, I want to get a fighter in production, and I think this is my best fighter. Let's do 1 and 1. I also want to get artillery into production. Three. One more for infantry equipment. Got to have a good foundation. Don't forget trains. Yeah, I think we can wait on trains. You're absolutely right about that. Now, I don't know how important for Italy trains are going to be. I'm not saying they're going to be unimportant, but we're looking at a situation where, yeah, it's going to be an effect, and I'm going to build them. But you're absolutely right, not to forget them. But I don't see it nearly as strategic as it is for Germany. What probably will be is convoys would probably be more important for for Italy and seeing the Mediterranean as a front. Probably be more important. Now, let's come over here, and again, I want to build a civil factory. Let's start with, we'll throw one in there. But we're going to also come over here and do some trade for that. Let's see, who do we'll get it from Siam. No, just one factory will be one short. And let's also get some chromium. We'll get it from Turkey, though Turkey was rather anti-Italian. Yeah, we currently only have these airframes available here. So I don't know why. Probably basics. Do we not have? Okay, I don't know exactly how all this is working here. For the new air components, you really don't, because we can look here. Basic airframe, right? Design lacks required equipment, main armament. So what we have to do here is research, I guess, heavy heavy MGs or something here to get these better airframes thing, and it's 3 years ahead of time according to this. So yeah, I don't know. Or no, I don't know. Frames, and then you build them like tanks, right? But there's a balancing now with airplanes when you design them. Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch for me to learn there. I really, like I say, I have not played this before. Right. Now let's come up here. Let's grab some of these formations. Okay, fighter. Okay, well, I'm going to work on the basis of very little Ethiopian air. So we're going to send those 2 units down here. Meaning very little opposition. So you guys come up here and go after bombers and fighters. You guys come here and go after grounded targets, and you guys come like that. So we'll get air superiority in both places, but immediately here. I think we will. Now let's get back to building up our...
Formazione.
Let's get a higher command. Here, Rodolfo Graziani. We'll put him in overall charge.
Formazione.
Let's do this. Match them to there. No, no. These to here. I want them to that. No. Oh, I see. Oh, we got to pick at the general first. Right. We have reckless, speed, old guard. I wouldn't mind bringing up a few of these. And we'll bring him up here now. Put him under that. So we have 2 generals commanding 2 different corps, if you will, down there and over here. We have one. We're gonna have an army unit up in the north and the south, but we're gonna have an army unit down here. Let's put that under him as well. So, all right. So we've got a lot of our, and we're not going to worry about air operations or naval operations anywhere. We don't want to use up the fuel, what limited we have. We've got some trades going. Oh, right. Well, I know it's taking a while. Now, we get going here.
Attento.
Potato.
Comandi. Sì, signore. Comandi. Pronto, signore. Ordini?
All
Pronto, signore.
moving there.
Pronto.
These guys are going to attack out into the desert.
Pronto, signore.
But let's increase the speed a bit. Now, whether live here now or later on YouTube, if you want to comment, does anyone out here like the system that Paradox uses, and that we start a nation with all of these slots empty? Why? There's pre-existing conditions, just like Mussolini's in power. There was a, whatever. And I understand that there's a bigger cabinet than just what's sort of here, and it's sort of, pick the ones you want to focus on. But, and I get podcast, I know he sort of left this project, but his point is you don't just, like in HOI IV, you get to min-max, jump these around. There's a political cost in shifting government focuses. I get that and agree with it in concept. And the more you do it should disrupt things, or however you want to, or have it costier. So I agree with the cost. But these costs should be making changes, in my opinion, not just getting your first whatever minister for whatever section. This should be more or less staffed unless you have a good reason not to. Like, well, Ethiopia probably wouldn't have a naval minister, or admirals. So unless there's a good reason not. I don't like that. Hello, TI comedian. How you doing? I like the HOI II system best, where the cabinet was fixed part on party stance and switched them only when allowed within the limit. That's interesting. I've not played HOI II, so I can't really look at that. It makes no sense that a commune. Yes, and I agree with that. And we do have, and I agree that you shouldn't be able to move some in here. So I think some of these may be blacked out here because, well, some of these are just, okay, ruling party is not communist, right? So some of these do have a political thing. Now, part of what they want to do is, if you want to go down a communist road, you start putting these guys in. I also sort of disagree with that mechanic. Okay, we'll just keep watching, and I will hopefully improve. You can learn something from either how best to do it or how not to do it. Comedian. Okay, that would be a good thing. Yeah, start with a historical start. And when I built one of the ministers for, because I do have a mod for Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice called Third Reich Events, if you don't know. They added an education minister, so I put in Germany's historical education minister, and he was a bit of a nut. And basically what he was doing was disrupt the system. So he starts in the thing, and there's no real cost to switch to them. But he's actually has basically negative effects. I think maybe entirely negative effects. So I would even consider putting in somebody here, potentially, depending on the country, with negative effects. Or maybe some positive, some negative, or whatever. Like increase ruling party support, but disrupts industry, or whatever you look at historically. And then you got to change out bad ones, but stay within the realms of party politics that existed. So I agree with generally with Tinky's point in keeping it within a batch of what would be acceptable to the party in power. So depending on where you're going on it. Yes, Arno. And the designers give some bonus stats to certain equipment when you research it. That yes. Armor and aircraft designer, I think, when it's designing something like tank or aircraft. Yes, like the Bureau of Ordnance. And yes, there are various elements here. I mean, I can argue for and against having some of these sort of combined into sort of super traits. But okay, let's see. General, okay. Beyond Ensondo, right? Okay, so and so you know, I can see some of these being multiple companies sort of there, and I can argue details, but I'm just talking the basic fundamentals of. Everything should be full unless there's a good reason. Like I said, like Austria wouldn't have naval commanders or whatever, or if a nation doesn't functionally have an air force or whatever, or doesn't for some of these productions, if there is no, like, there was functionally, in my opinion, we can talk about it, but there was really no aircraft designer for Turkey. So, and maybe you want to have some that you could theoretically put in place, but that would not be there at the start, as well as naval, because they really didn't design their own ships as far as I know, Turkey at this time. You know, they bought foreign production for anything significant. So, you know, on some of that kind of stuff, you know, might be a good reason to have an empty slot, but it would need to be a good reason. The aircraft are coming down here. Yeah. Okay. Right. We now have you here. You're going to come down to here.
Pronto all'azione.
The infantry division is going to come down to here. And
Si,
these
signore.
two infantry divisions are also going to come down here. The major push will be, of course, from the north, but we're also going to be pushing it from the south. And there's some good work done with, and I rage quit Black Eyes last time, but I still think there's some good work being done there. Also, World Ablaze has done a lot of good work.
Si, signore. Avanzate.
I don't want to send everybody in to occupy that when that gets taken, but I do want to support the attacks. Okay, so we're down here. You come up. You come up. Ground support. Okay, we pushed into there. They're defending currently forward. Now we're going to attack here to spoil this attack here. Okay, see, is that a new name? Yes, I can talk about that here. I read the BIs for HOI IV were working on update. Good, I'm glad they are. Oh, let me pause this. I presume they were before, and I just hadn't got, I don't know if they, I hadn't paid attention if they had released one for the last major DLC with the railroads, but we'll see about that. Okay. End the Christmas offensive. Our troops have stalled in the war against Ethiopia or Abyssinia, and have even been pushed back in certain places. This Christmas offensive has Mussolini privately berating the military high command for their incompetence. El Duce wants results now. He has therefore authorized any means necessary to repel Abyssinians, to end this war swiftly, whatever it takes. By any means necessary, war escalation by one, offensive which grants Ethiopia attack bonuses, enemy air support, major offensive, or we need to be methodical and deliberate. Heat attrition less, supply consumption down. I prefer this, so we're going to go with this one. Yes. Quite honestly, I didn't know much about this state here. The Sultanate of Asua. I read about it, and it wasn't on any map that I know of, meaning Ethiopia claimed this land. And I did know that, what should we call them? Tribal chiefs or clan chiefs, we'll call them those, existed, political leaders like that existed under, I forget the name of the movie. I saw it many years ago, I think back in the late 80s, about the Italian fighting out here in Cyrenaica. This is before World War I, so it's before the fascists, against Arab resistance. But not all clans, I guess we normally would call Arabs and clans, were Africans and tribes. I don't know necessarily the distinction between these groups. If more or less, and I knew this, if more or less you were willing to play ball with the Italian, and again, this is includes pre-fascists coming to power, play ball with, because all of Eritrea and Somalia come in before the fascists take over, play ball with the Italian overlordship, you can still continue to be your local sultan, your local whatever clan chief, whatever you want to call them, and still manage the affairs of your people, if you will, but you're not going to have control over what the Italians are doing in the region. If they're going to build schools, and I know there is an attempt, I don't know how in practical, I don't know how much in ideological, but I know it's very limited in practical attempt to teach, to children Italian, and educate, in the colonies. There is an attempt at that. Something that Hitler is not for, but Mussolini and the fascists are. So, if the Italians are going to build a school and want to have your children come to it, you better send your children to it. You're not going to interfere with what the Italians are doing. You're not really going to have a say against what the Italians are doing. But even under Mussolini, these type of people are held up with certain status, still have political local power. I know in the big event that when Hitler comes down to get permission to go into Austria, it's a big multi-day event, and one of the sort of big parade, almost sort of an opposite of a parade route, in which sort of the route the Germans drive down, they're driving down, but it's more, static lines of troops, static lines of whatnot. The Italians are showing off people like him, often very black-skinned people like him, in very nice native garb. And these are presented as leaders, not as captured subjects or whatnot. So these are, as how great the Italian Empire is, not as we've crushed these people, and showing off. So I did know that these type of things, and I read into this, I think this guy's father or something sort of sold this territory to the Italians, and somewhere in here had been fighting a war. It sounded almost like a guerrilla war as much as controlling territory against the Ethiopians. And I know down out here in Ogden, this is the sort of the Ogden Desert. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. I know there isn't. It's not calling this. There is a anti-Ethiopian element that I remember back in the Cold War era that was going on and is still around. And these guys here are Muslim, where the Ethiopian empire is Christian. And we have today in Tigray, which is here. Yeah, okay, there is. Okay, so this is where they put Tigray. There is a massive civil war in which tens of thousands of people have died. Within the last year, that aren't getting on the media because of other wars, or wouldn't have got on even when there was other wars. So some of these groups that are particularly either, some of them are Muslims, some of them are just, shall we say, tribes again that are on the outs with Addis Ababa. We're actually really sort of like, yay for the Italians coming in. Hopefully we'll get a better deal. Not that they were going to get their independence. They're going to get a better deal under the Italian rulership, because Haile Selassie is not very much of an enlightened leader when it comes to things like that. He is as much as a dictator as any other hardcore authoritarian. He isn't some like, yay, democracy type person. He is like, fuck democracy, I'm the king, I rule by the divine right of God and whatnot, and you better do what I say or we'll get the machine guns out. Hello, plastic gangster. Well, I've long said that HOI IV is the past and HOI IV is the future, and HOI IV with railroads and whatnot is getting better. Right now, I think I still prefer Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice, not HOI 3. If it's just HOI 3 versus HOI 4, I'm for HOI 4. If I had to play the base game between the two, just what Paradox puts out, with the DLCs and whatnot, but I'm playing HOI 4. With HOI 3 with Black Ice, I still think I prefer it, but I like this too, and I think this is the future if they continue to develop and they continue to allow modders to do things. Now, why did we stop this attack here? Oh, we took the province. That's why we stopped the attack. Okay, that makes sense. Use the mountain troops there. So it's and both of them have problems, shall we say? Both have problems, and so I don't have a 1-3 Black Ice is greater than all. Hello, today my Bard Day. How you doing? Well, HOI 3 Black Ice is still great. It is, and it's going to take a lot for it to 100% be replaced by HOI 4 with some mods. Might happen one day, but we've been talking about a lot about the Abyssinia between Ethiopia and Italy, which triggered Italy leaving League of Nations, seizing large part. Yes, absolutely. The French and British collusion, or at least they turned a blind. Well, the British and the French embargoed Italy. They didn't turn a blind eye. I would say they fully embargoed Italy on everything, like you said earlier, except oil. All League of Nations had to not trade with Italy. All right, even though, well, partially because I've been talking so long, we are already an hour into this, so I want to stop the episode, not the live stream. Don't worry, those watching live, we're going to keep going. But those watching later on YouTube, thank you so much. I want to thank Tim, Strongarm, Niagro, Timothy, and Sir Toyjet for support over on Patreon. But everybody, what I really want you guys to do is to lick the like button, smash that red, if it's red, subscribe button, and of course post a comment. That really feeds the algorithm and really helps what's going on with my channel. So if you guys would do that, I really appreciate it. And yes, we will be continuing this series for a while, at least taking a look at Mussolini's Italy in Hearts of Iron 4's latest DLC. Thanks, everybody.